Excuse me. I'm trying to study the Sabbath School Lesson. What? What do you want? Oh. Yeah. Covenants. Let's talk about that. Hey guys, and welcome to this week's Sabbath School Short. This week we're looking at lesson number 2, which is titled Covenant Primer. And the memory text for this week is found in Exodus chapter 19, verse 5. And it says this: Now, therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And I want to remind you guys that this new style of Sabbath School Short. We're not going to take you day by day, pull out the quotes, and spoon feed you that information. We really want you guys to look along with us as we go through this lesson. So down in the description box, there is a link to this week's lesson. And I would invite you to open that up and to follow along with us as we look over the main themes and the main ideas of this week's lesson. And so the 3 things that we're going to look at this week that a covenant needs in order to function are these. And I'm pulling this from Sunday's lesson. The quote here, it says this: Number 1, God affirmed the covenant promise with an oath. Number 2, the covenant obligation was obedience to God's will as expressed in the 10 Commandments. Number 3, the means by which God's covenant obligation is ultimately fulfilled is through Christ and the plan of salvation. So these are the 3 components that are absolutely necessary for a covenant to fulfill its purpose. And its purpose is to bring us and restore us back into our relationship with God. So let's look at this first point here. God affirmed the covenant promises with an oath. We're going to talk about a man named Noah. And this is actually one of the first times that a covenant is made in the Bible. It's actually the first time the lesson brings out. Look at this with me in Genesis 6:18. It says, But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. So this is the first time this word covenant appears. And I really want you to put on your thinking caps now, because we're going to dive into some critical thinking. How does this video apply to this specific covenant? Marriage, right? You know, I just recently got married about 2 months ago, and this really big, huge thing that I committed to my wife. Hi, wife, love you. This big, huge thing that I committed to my wife, right, involved this lifelong promise. But how does marriage tie in with Noah? How does marriage tie in with the flood? How does marriage tie in with this big biblical story that you and I know very well? And I think that it results in this idea of a promise. So that kind of covers Monday's lesson, but there's a lot of details obviously that we have not covered. So I would encourage you, read that lesson, study it for yourself, and see what amazing nuggets are in here, because there's some really good ones about the covenant with Noah. So go read that for yourself. But looking over at Tuesday's and Wednesday's lesson, which we're going to kind of combine into one main idea, right? And these are kind of illustrating that second point of a covenant. Remember that we read at the beginning, that second point of the covenant. So check out this video, and remember, put that critical thinking cap on. Newton's Cradle, right? This engineering feat, I don't know what you want to call it, but this idea where you have these little balls, right, and they're all lined up, and you start clicking one, and it clicks the other one. They keep doing this, right, for a long time. That's kind of illustrates this idea of a cause and effect, right? And this is kind of what I was thinking of in that what these 2 lessons, Tuesday and Wednesday's lesson, with the covenant with Abram and the covenant with Moses, really illustrate this idea of a cause and effect. Specifically in the sense that since we are saved, we obey.
Hold on a minute. What, Andrew? What are you doing? We're talking about just old covenant, the past. How many thousands of years old are these things that we're talking about? Shouldn't we be talking about like modern things, new covenants? Like there's this whole other side. We're halfway or more than halfway through this video when we haven't even talked about the lesson. Check out this quote. What about the new covenant, Andrew? Why haven't you read it? See? Like, super important quote. Like, just
I was just getting to that. Thank you very much. Thursday's lesson is titled The New Covenant, and it's this new covenant that we are living in today. But what exactly is that new covenant? Illustration.
Water moving from one vessel to the other. I was just supposed to be an illustration, but doing that, it made me think of a quote from Thursday's lesson that helps to illustrate this, or kind of unpack that illustration, I should say. And it says this: as a result, the people simply obey him, not in some rote, mechanical way, but purely because they know him, because they love him, and because they want to serve him. No, you're not going to cut me off like last time. This is an excellent quote. Okay, where were we? This captures the essence of the covenant relationship the Lord seeks with his people. Now you can take me out.
Andrew, that was a solid point, but I think we can take it one level deeper. So Jesus comes in and fills us up, right? But what exactly is he filling us up with? What's actually going on inside of us when Jesus comes in? Check out this quote here. It says, notice also the language there. God referred to himself as a husband to them. He talked about writing his law within their hearts. And using language for the Abrahamic covenant, he says he will be their God and they will be his people. So what Jesus comes in now, he comes into our hearts and he's writing his laws upon our hearts, and he's filling us up with his love. And it's that relationship foundation, right, that Jesus is filling up within us and taking that law and writing it on our hearts so that we obey from the inside out. And if you want to know more than what we have covered, then please study the lesson for yourself. Go in there, dive in, read it, think about the images, think about the videos that we have presented to you, and kind of put on your critical thinking cap and see how it all connects and see how it all weaves together to form this beautiful picture of what a covenant actually is. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's Sabbath School Short. If you could give a thumbs up for this video, subscribe to Advent Blueprint, that would be fantastic. We hope to see you guys on next week's Sabbath School Short, and we'll see you then.